Hi, and welcome back to Fondue for Two with your host, Brittany S. Pierce and Lord Tubbington. Skipper does not like being held. That bit literally cost him his sanity. He loves being cuddled, does not like being held. He said absolutely not. So, you might be wondering what we're doing today. In that case, learn to read the title. What are you doing? Haphazardly clicking on YouTube videos with no context. That's how you end up in a hole that you don't want to be in. It's Sapphic book reviews today. I got my little sweater on, I'm looking studious, let's get into it. I enjoyed both of these books so much. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. I actually think these books are equal in rating, but I'll do the one that I liked. Oh my god, why did I say it like that? The one that I liked a little less first. Hey, so I'm editing and I just wanted to quickly mention a bias that I forgot to mention. In this series, because these are all specifically Sapphic books, take my ratings with a grain of salt because I'm rating all these books within the Sapphic sphere. There's so much heterosexual content and books and media out there that it seems unfair to really do a Sapphic series and then rate them in comparison to all of that. So take these ratings with a little grain of salt and remember that they're in comparison to like Sapphic books specifically. Also, look at my son. Oh, that was so cute, Skipper. And that book is She Drives Me Crazy. Now, I need to emphasize the only reason I like this book a little bit less is because I'm somebody who typically likes plot with romance, not romance as the plot. And even as somebody who typically isn't a huge romance book person, this one still got me. I read this book, I kid you not, in one night, and then I fell asleep, and then I woke up and finished the book. It was the first thing I did that morning. It was like 6 in the morning too. So the way we're doing this review today is I made a notes app with all my original thoughts the second I finished these books, but then I also sat on it so I can give you my impression, you know, a couple weeks later as well. Yes, cat. All right, so the basics of this book is it is a young adult book. It is 294 pages, and it does have like a larger font. You know, what I would use to compare is larger than the Twilight font, just because I feel like that's a book most people know. So Scotty, the redhead over here, is a basketball player, and her ex had just broken up a few months ago, and instead of like getting over it, she's more on the obsessive side. She is still feeling that breakup heavy. Her ex is named Tally. They were on the same basketball team, but Tally ended up transferring to the other high school because their team was just better. The basketball team at Scotty's school, a little bit of embarrassment. That other high school is located in the town of Candlehawk. Now, Candlehawk is what you would think of as the more like preppy, douchey side of town, or other town, I guess. And because she left that school and went to the Candlehawk High School, she dumped Scotty. Scotty doesn't know that she is about to go through so much heartbreak. Rip. So the other main character of romance is Irene. So this book is an enemies to lovers. Irene starts off as Scotty's nemesis. Now the reason for that is Scotty spilled a drink into Irene at a party, and Irene had Scotty's car towed. And Scotty's basically like, that doesn't feel worth the reaction to what I did. The punishment does not fit the crime. And so they are nemesises. Nemesis-I. Sea anemones. Something else to note about Irene is she is the head cheerleader and she is Miss Popular. She is number one spot. Big bad girl on campus, but not bad girl. I guess she's nice, she's popular. Well, I guess it depends how you look at it, because if you're Scotty, you certainly don't think she's nice. So basically how they begin to speak is Irene backs her car into Scotty's, and Scotty is like, oh, that's not great. This leaves Irene's car undrivable because I think like the bumper's hanging down and you know, you can't drive with that. So she has to send it to the shop, and Scotty's mom is like, well, it's kind of both of your faults because Scotty wasn't paying attention when Irene backed into her. So Scotty's mom is like, Scotty, drive Irene to and from school until her car's out of the shop. Now, what this does is it almost instantly makes Scotty popular because she's showing up to school with Irene in her car, and she's being put on people's Snapchat stories and all of that good stuff. And she gets a jealous text from her ex Tally. So Scotty's like, hanging around Irene is making me seem more popular. It's making my ex that I'm like pretty obsessed with a little jealous. What can this do for me? Another note is not only is Scotty getting more popular, not only is Scotty making her ex jealous, but because Irene's the head cheerleader, the cheerleading team comes to the end of their basketball team's practice. And the basketball team starts to notice that they do better when the cheerleaders are there and they have a little bit of an audience, you know, cheering them on. Now, unfortunately for Scotty, Irene's car gets fixed, and it's not like they became close during this time. They were still pretty much enemies. So Scotty goes back to being under the radar and, you know, the cheerleading team stops coming to the practice. So Scotty's like, dang, that sucks, until she overhears Irene at the dance talking about how she can't afford the $1,000 deductible and is gonna have to quit cheerleading and get a job to pay for it. Here's a part of small beef I have with this book. Scotty also overhears that Irene is queer at the dance. Irene's not completely out. So when Scotty goes up to Irene and basically says, I will pay your $1,000 deductible if you pretend to be my girlfriend, part of me is like, that feels a little bit like putting her in a position that's gonna out her. However, in the book, Scotty emphasizes like, you don't have to do this, I'm not gonna tell anybody. If you don't want people to know, that's your business. And Irene is the one that ultimately is like, no, I should come out anyways. So it's not the worst, but it's certainly, when I first read it, I was like, yeah, but you're still being like, hey, I'll pay your $1,000 deductible if you come out and pretend to be my girlfriend so I get benefits from your popularity. There is a little bit of a hard point for me there, even though Irene is written as like, yeah, I want to come out, so sure. And so not only is this enemies to lovers, it is also fake dating trope. Can I get a woo woo, woo woo? Two big O's. Two big O's? What am I doing? So that's where I'll leave like the little summary for you, because I want you to read it if you want to read it and see where it goes from there. Now let's talk about some things I like and some things I don't like about this book. First of all, the plot is so basic. We've seen it before. The plot is nothing special, but in the back of the book there is an interview with the author, and the author is even like, I don't shine with plot building, I shine with my character development, which is absolutely true. The characters in this book are what make it this book. For 294 pages of large text, you really feel like you get to know the characters, and I'm not just talking the main characters, I'm also talking all of the side characters. Speaking of those side characters, they're also like really interesting and fun, and you care about the dynamics happening like on the side of the book, because obviously these two are this is the main plots, but you have some like friendship side plots going on, and you genuinely do care about it because of the characters and because of character development. There's also some diversity in this book. I don't think I've seen personally a lesbian book with an Indian main character, so I thought that was pretty cool. Now, I'll be honest, they don't really dive into her culture a whole bunch. It's not like massive. You get a little bit of it when you see her home, and it explains like her home a little bit. Other than that, it's not like you're getting a deep dive into culture, but it's definitely mentioned and it comes up. On top of that, Scotty's best friend Danielle is Black, as well as their friend Kevin. So there's more diversity than just Irene. Some of the plots that are on the side are like multiple side relationships that are cute and also develop, and they're fun to read. Like, it doesn't get boring when you kind of, take a second to glance over there. And what I really love about this book is Scotty's character development is amazing. Because here's the thing, I don't want to give too much away, but it's not just Scotty has mean ex, Scotty meets new girl, Scotty gets over ex. No, it kind of talks about the intricacies of having an ex while meeting somebody new, and kind of Scotty going through that and working through that. And it's not just like the new girl fixes all those issues. Like, Scotty has to go through it and actually have character development. So Scotty's like a great example of some more toxic ways to handle a breakup and a lot of healthier ways as she develops. If I was in high school, I would have ate this up. I would have ate this up so hard, and I would have been like, I wish something like this was gonna happen to me. It is so cute. I really genuinely enjoyed it as, not a high schooler. And it's not something I would typically enjoy. I don't typically enjoy things with like sports. I don't typically really care about like books that are romance without much plot, but this book really did it for me. I genuinely recommend it if that's something that you think you could be interested in, because as somebody who was not super interested, I enjoyed it. There's also discussions of homophobia and internalized homophobia through another character. This character is Irene's nemesis, Charlotte, who she used to be super close with and had a crush on. And there's a lot of discussion of that through that character, which is also really cool. This book is, if I had one word to describe it, camp. This book is absolute camp, and I ate it up. Listen, grab me a tent and some logs and let's light that fire, because I was camping. Absolutely, but it was so enjoyable. I would give this book personally a 4 out of 5. The only reason it really loses a point is because the plot's just seen it before, but the character development really is so good that It is worth reading, even if you're a plot girly like me. Definitely recommend. And yeah, that's She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan. Hopefully I said your name right. All right, let's move on to the next one and hopefully fix the sunlight that's busting through my eyes. All right, it's time to dive into the one that was my personal favorite. Once again, this is for personal book preference reasons. They're both good books. This is Of Fire and Stars. Now, the reason this one gets a bias is because I am a fantasy girly, I am a magic girly. You give me anything with that, and I am already there. You give me that and lesbians? Sign me up. So let's go over the basics of this book. It is also young adult, although I would argue a little more mature. It is 389 pages, and as my example, the font is a little bit smaller than Twilight. So this book is, I would consider, much longer than the other one. I finished this roughly in 4 days, and that's only because I had a lot going on. Had I had less going on, this is a book that I would have been a page turner and I would have finished much quicker, but I had other responsibilities and I got to them, like a good Sybil. So this book also has a sequel. I have not read it yet, so I cannot review that for you. So this will be strictly on Of Fire and Stars. Since this is a fantasy book, there's a lot of fun, quirky names, and I might not pronounce all of them correctly. A lot of them have nicknames in the book, so if you hear me shortening the names to those, that's why. So, Princess Denna for short, has been betrothed. What is this dick's name? I'm trying to give you his full name before I cut his name down, but I genuinely can't remember what this full name is. And it's not because the books and characters aren't memorable, it's because the names are quirky and cool and fun, so I'm gonna have to look some of them up. So Princess Denna has been betrothed to Prince Thandalamin, we'll call him Thandy for short, since she was 7. Now the reason for this is to create an alliance between their two kingdoms. Princess Denna belongs to the kingdom of Havemont, whereas Thandy belongs to the kingdom of Minaria. So basically, them wedding will create a treaty. Something we find out in the prologue is Denna has an affinity for fire magic. Now, what's so quirky and strange about that? Oh no, magic is outlawed. That's right, it is banned specifically in Minaria, which is a pretty large kingdom, and the one where she will be betrothed. So after the prologue, the book starts off pretty fast with her arriving at Minaria. She basically gets there, she's meeting Thandy, some things happen, she gets rushed by a horse, she falls to the ground. Who's there to give her a helping hand? Prince Thandy's sister. So every chapter this book changes POV. One chapter will be Princess Denalia's POV, and then the next chapter will be Princess Amaranthine, Mare for short's POV. Princess Denna, she falls to the floor like a horse rushes her. She's like, she's on the floor, right? Who goes to help her? Oh no, not Prince Thandy, but his sister, Princess Mare. That's right, Mare. She works with horses. Are we catching on? So Princess Mare helps her up, and that's how they first meet. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. For the first 1/3 of this book, I do not like Mare. I think she is just annoying, a little bratty, and just, she's supposed to have this strong, I don't want to be a princess, I'm more than that, I just want to live my simple life, taking care of my horses, all that good stuff, with like, fair enough. But she becomes a little insufferable at certain points, but that's only in the first 1/3 of the book, and she has a lot of character development, so don't make that your reason not to read this. That's just how I felt about her. So basically, because Mare has this attitude of, I don't want to be princess, I just want to take care of my horses, and Princess Denalia is literally over there trying to schmooze up the kingdom and make a really good impression and hide her magic, all this cool stuff. Princess Mare is like, I don't want to be friends with her, and I also don't want to be friends with her because I know that's what my dad would want, and I don't want to do anything that's beneficial to the kingdom because I just want to hang out with my mares as Mare. So it starts off kind of like enemies to lovers, but I would argue one-sided enemies. Like, Mare is the one that's like, fuck Denna, and Denna's over here like, the fuck did I do? Which is kind of funny. So obviously this isn't just that little bit of enemies to lover, it's also star-crossed, because Denna is betrothed to Thandy. Now here's my thing, some people might be like, this is a cheating trope and that's bad. I personally don't look at it that way, because in my opinion, they're betrothed since they were 7. They don't really like care. They're doing this because they have to. It's not like they're in love. In fact, it's stated multiple times where Thandy's like, I hope you can grow to love me. Grow to love me, because we're forced to be together. So for me, it's hard to look at this and be like, that's a cheating trope, because it's Is it really? Is it really? Also, they're not even married yet. So yes, it's star-crossed because Denna and Thandi and then his sister, the princess. On top of that, this book is a slow burn. I don't know about you, but I like a good slow burn. I'm like, yes, give me those little moments, those secret moments. I can't, if I start singing Dressed by Taylor Swift, I'm getting copyrighted, and I don't want that. So that's like, I guess, what you would call the romance plot to this book, but there's a whole other plot going on. There's an assassination in the kingdom after Denna arrives, and Denna is trying to uncover this assassination while Mare is also trying to uncover this assassination, and that's kind of the driving force that really makes them start to speak, is because they both care about this assassination, and they both care to solve it, and so that's kind of what puts them together. So there's also people in the kingdom trying to create a war between Mineria and the kingdom of Zamorda. The reason for that is Mineria obviously has outlawed magic and Zamorda does not outlaw magic. Zamorda actually is like kind of a haven for people who do magic. The people of Mineria view magic as like against the gods and dangerous and basically as a big negative. Yes, we have the romance plot line going on, but the main focus of the book is more so the assassination and trying to figure out whether this war is going to wage or not and how to try and stop that from happening. On top of that, obviously, Denna learning more about her magic while also trying to hide it from everybody because it's outlawed and she is supposed to be the new queen. So you can imagine things get a little messy, a little wild, a little magical, if I may say so. Shut up. So while romance is a main point, it is not the absolute main point, which is typically what I enjoy, which is why I enjoyed this book a little bit more. Along with that, since this is a young adult book, I would argue this fantasy is much more digestible than most fantasy. So if you're somebody that's typically a little worried about delving into fantasy, it's not very complicated. There's only a few kingdoms to keep track of. The plot line's not absolutely insane, but it is interesting. So if usually you're like, there's so much in fantasy and I can't keep track of it, this is very digestible. And I personally gave this book a 4 out of 5. Now, the reason it's a 4 out of 5 is because the fantasy is a little too easy to digest for me personally as a fantasy lover. If, like I said, you're somebody who doesn't like fantasy and usually that scares you, that's perfect for you. That makes it better for you. For me, it makes it a little worse. On top of that, Mare feeling very basic and annoying and like a regular character trope for 1/3 of the book definitely does lower the rating for me. I just feel like if she was a little less of a stereotype for the first third of the book, I would have enjoyed it a little more. I got really, really into the book, I think around page 60 or 70, so it took me a minute, but that's pretty normal with most books, is you gotta really get into it. But just for those couple of reasons, it's a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5 for me. Those were the 2 books I had for you today, one based very much in reality, one based very much not within reality. So 2 options for you there. I did prefer Of Fire and Stars just because of personal book preference, but if you're somebody who does prefer reality, I would recommend this one more. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching Fondue for Two. All of my socials will be in the description. Please check them out if you want to see me anywhere else. And with all that being said, bye! Oh, my hands are so crunchy right now.